Okay, there's 16 of our students are with us so far, so we still have several to go. How is the weather where you are, Dr. Revis?
It is really cold. We're expecting ice up here on Thursday morning, early morning.
It's just, and that's why the what happened down at the Holden B, I mean the Charlotte area, that's what happened last night. A warm front moved in, and it was moved in fast. I had laid down, and all of a sudden I began to hear thunder and lightning. I thought something, because I can often hear from Interstate 95. I can hear things sometime if it's real quiet. And I thought, I said, something's happened on the interstate to start with. But then I was reading and had gone to the back bedroom and was reading. And all of a sudden, I just got up and I asked my wife, I said, is that thunder? And she said, it's lightning too. But I mean, it went on for a long time.
Oh, wow.
It was
here a week solid.
Yeah, well, today was a pretty day. But now I understand it's supposed to start back again, tomorrow. So, I don't know. I was able to take the puppy or the dog out today, or my wife did. So she was happy. She had not been out forever. So
yeah, I feel like I haven't either.
yeah. But anyway, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I hope some others will join us. But again, welcome to week 6, and I hope you've had a good weekend. It's been wet where I am and cold, and like Dr. Revis said, but we did have a pretty day today, so I was thankful for today. But I think we're in for some more. And with all that thundering and lightning, the old almanac and the old people used to say that 10 days after you hear that in the wintertime, that means you're going to have some snow and ice. So, I'm going to see what the next 10 days hold for us. But anyway, but welcome. And again, I know this seems redundant because we've said it over and over again, but this semester is flying by. It is flying by. So week 6. And thank you for hanging in there with us and, and persevering and doing what we asked you to do. You did exactly what we asked you to do, and I think you're seeing that what Dr. Revis and I told you has happened because, for the most part, you can see it evidenced in the work that you're doing. But Dr. Revis, would you like to say something at this time?
Well, I agree. I'm just thrilled to death that you guys have hung in there, and I'm going to spill over a little bit about our Zoom peer reviews. It was very rewarding to hear you talk about how much you have grown in your reflections to your Zoom mates. And we know this is a very difficult semester for you guys in the schools, or even if you're in the central offices, because you've been in and out and hybrid, and we just know that that has caused a lot of issues for you as far as being able to have access to PLC members. But my hat is off to you guys for going ahead, and I know a couple of you shared that you really hated to ask some of your colleagues to do one more Zoom meeting, and but I do think that for the most part, it looks like when I looked at task 4, for the most part, many of your principals have said that they want to move forward with implementing your action plan.
I agree.
And that has to be rewarding to you. Guys, you're making a difference in your school for your children.
You are.
And that's why we do what we do as school administrators. We want to make a difference for children. And so just pat yourself on the back about where you are and how far you've come and how you've grown over these last 5 weeks. It's it's amazing, and you are making an impact and leaving behind your legacy at your school.
And I agree, Dr. Revis. The peer reviews were the Zoom peer reviews were really great, and I saw great leadership. The people that took over the responsibilities to be Zoom master for this activity, and we do encourage you to make sure that you know to rotate that responsibility out amongst others in your group and give others the same opportunities. To be able to take the lead and to move forward. All of you need to be able to learn and to do from that. But I again, great job. And as Dr. Revis said, you've done. I think you've done extremely well under the circumstances. You've taken lemons and you've made lemonade out of it, and it was a good glass of lemonade. So keep up the good work and don't backslide on us. I will say that uh, my peer reviews for task 4 were, I had some mixed feelings. Some were just over the top, but then I had 2 or 3 that I felt like you backslid on me, and I don't need you to backslide on me. I know that after a while you say, well, I don't know. It's your responsibility to figure out what to say and how to say it, and you know it can't be so cut and dry that yeah, good job. Make sure that your feedback is valid feedback, and that it's something that and if everything looks great, then don't just say everything looks great. I really like the way you did so and so, or point out, and some of you did an excellent job with that. Some of you there, I would say that that's an area of growth, and you've got opportunities um, to continue that as you move into the APTEL, because you've got to do the same thing. But make sure that you are putting the quality time into that. And I will say, Dr. Revis, that we've asked them to do their peer reviews in a timely manner so that it benefits the author. And if you wait until Saturday or Sunday to turn in your peer reviews, I'm making it a conscious point. Now, I'm not going to give you full credit. That's not fair. It could be the best thing since sliced bread. That's not fair to your team for you not to be able to submit something in a timely manner. But it's too late for them at that point to be able to use anything that you have to say to them. So, I'm asking you to be conscious of that, and to get your peer reviews in, schedule your time so that you can get them in a timely manner. Dr. Revis, do you agree with me on that?
I do, and for the most part, you guys are getting them in by Tuesday, sometime Tuesday, and that's great. Because again, if you wait until the end of the week, you're
But
just
if
doing
there's
an
right, but
exercise.
if they say that there's 4 people on a team, and 2 people on that team decide to wait until the end, that really puts a hardship on that team. So, just be conscious of that. And I think you need to respect each other and make sure that, and communicate with each other. If there's a problem, you need to communicate with your team. That's part of leadership. That's part of communication. And I'm not going to camp out there anymore. You can see this is basically what this evening is going to look like. Um, um, we're going to talk about task 4 briefly. We're going to introduce task 5. Um, then we're going to talk about um, task 5, competencies versus what your competency folio looks like. We're going to begin a discussion of that. And then we're going to introduce case study 1 of the AAPSL. So that's what this evening looks like. This can be found under week 6 in Blackboard. And you see all the colored highlighted stuff. That is just simply another way of helping you keep up with what you've got to do when it's got to be done. We hope that this is helpful for you. It's just taking and pulling it from other places in Blackboard and just putting it in one place for you to help you kind of organize and to plan your time accordingly with that. With that in mind, I'm going to minimize this, and then I'm going to pull up. Dr. Revis, if you would go ahead while I'm pulling this up and begin talking about what you've seen with Task 4 up to this point.
Okay, well, I've seen some really good work in Task 4, and you know, it's heavy in the writing area, but you guys handled it really well. The one area that I had to send back, the most common area that I had to send back and ask you to revise was the section on formative and summative assessment.
Me too.
We know that in the classroom, formative assessment means ongoing assessment, assessment, where you give good feedback and specific feedback to your students. But for the purposes of this evidence, formative assessment means how are you going to monitor what the adults are doing? Now, I would say about a third of you did put in that we were going to monitor the adult behaviors by conducting walkthroughs, monitoring lesson plans, those kinds of things. But there does need to be a thought put into how we're going to monitor the behaviors of the adults. I would expect to see a strategy actually in your action plan reflective of that as well. Doesn't have to be, but again, if you don't monitor it, it's not going to really be implemented. So that, other than that, I felt really, really good about the work that you turned in. I would say that probably 2/3 of you had not had your meeting to present the plan to the administrative team, and that's okay. We knew that was going to be pushing you.
Right. You know, but I agree, Dr. Revis. That was my main thing. Was the biggest thing was the dealing with the formative and the summative assessments. And if you put in their formative assessments for the students, I'm not penalizing you for that. However, you must talk about that in addition to how you're going to monitor the adults, the teachers, with fidelity to make sure. And I always ask that question when I send it back. I said, who's going to be doing the monitoring and what and how are they going to do it? You just need to talk about it in your narrative, and then you need to show it in the template in your action plan template. You need to show that as well. Very quickly, I wanted to go back over what is it going to take for the evaluator to look at your paper and to hopefully be accomplished on that. This is in your Blackboard, but this is what you have to do with Task 4. The candidate demonstrates knowledge of the steps in developing an action plan. Now, when we looked at that, remember we gave you several resources that's in your Blackboard, you know, of what a good action plan looks like according to research. You know, this is what I would assume that the evaluator is going to want to have language in there about, you know, what does it look like, and then what is the purpose of your action plan as it relates to your identified need and most pressing need in Task 2. In addition to that, the candidate demonstrates that knowledge and understanding related to systematic investigation of needs and solutions are essential as demonstrated through the application of the assigned technologies. They're going to look to see that you as a leader, that you know what you're talking about and the proof is in the work. You know, so that again, that's a strong area. And working with your PLC, the candidate has developed a complete action plan as outlined and articulated to the school leadership team. They're going to look to, and again, some of you said, well, my principal is on my team. Well, you need to make sure that that is clearly and visibly understood. If I had to put it in a paragraph by itself, I would make sure that it's there so that when the evaluator looks at it, that, you know, that they don't have to seek and find, because they're not going to look for things as much as Dr. Revis and I are going to look for things. And then finally, this is where I don't get afraid when you look at the last. Dr. Revis and I talked this afternoon. In the real world, this is what this would look like, but you're not operating in the real world right now. We realize that you're dealing with a lot of factors. You haven't had time, really. I mean, being realistically, but it says working with the school leadership team, the candidate and the PLC members have implemented the research-based strategies to convincingly meet the learning needs of the students. You haven't done that yet. So what we would do is you need to make sure that your narrative fully, I would, after I had presented to my administration, my principal, even if they're on the PLC, I would have me a strong paragraph that talks about, this is where we are, and this is according to my principal. We might not can do it right now, but my principal is on board, and the plans are, to begin to review this again in the summer and to begin full implementation of this in the fall of 2021. If that's whatever it is. But I would have a strong narrative. You don't have to write a book there, but a strong narrative that explains exactly where you are with your administration there. Okay. Dr. Revis, any comments on this?
No, that's perfect.
Okay. And while I'm there, let me come on down, because we're going to be going into task 5 in just a few minutes. But I want to go ahead and show you while you're there, you need to look at task 5 when we talk about the competencies that for task 5. Again, look at this is what you have to have accomplished for you cannot leave anything out there. And this is going to be the easiest of all 5 of the task for the AAPSL, but make sure that you go in here and you've done your narrative reflects what you've done as a result of working on the AAPSL with your PLC, and you have incorporated, what you've done as part of your internship as well, your administrative responsibility. All of that needs to be a good mixture, a good blend of things in the narrative work that we're going to talk about. The clinical experiences is all in there, and that you clearly have the 12 competencies that you're supposed to have. And then I'm going to point that out in just a minute, but I didn't want to have to come back to this. But you have this in Blackboard, so make sure that you refer back to that.
May I add to that just
Sure, go ahead, yes.
When I was evaluator and I was looking at task 5, I wanted to make sure that out of those 12 competencies, that there was a good mixture of reflections based on what you had done with your AAPSL work and your clinical experiences. It shouldn't come all from the AAPSL, nor should it come all from your clinical. It's a good blend. You have to both.
Okay, you're right. Let me temper it with. Okay. Okay, here it is. I thought it was at the place. This is your AAPSL, your template. I want to go to task 5 now. Oh, and I did want to point out, I had a student that actually did the PERT chart and did an excellent job with it.
I did too.
In addition, so kudos to that person. And I would think as an evaluator that's going to be a plus that they look at for for the work that you've done. Okay, this is task 5. You're going to reflect. Task 5 is nothing more than a reflection on the AAPSL experience. You're going to reflect on it by aligning the course content to the clinical experience. You're looking at what you've been able to, and we realize that many of your clinical experiences have been somewhat limited to what they would be if we were back to a normal situation in the schools. The candidates, you are going to reflect on development of competencies and dispositions that are so critical to effective school leadership. This is what you have to do. Reflecting on the AAPSL experience by critically assessing personal development. This is a personal thing. It's almost like writing a diary, you know, because it's what this experience has done for you, you know, up to this point. You know, that's what it's all about. Now, this is what you've got to do. For this task, for task 5, you are going to address 12 competencies. Think about that, 12 competencies. There are 21 competencies, and I'm going to show you those in just a minute. But there, you're going to address 12 of 21 competencies. Of those 12 competencies that you have to address for task 5 of the AAPSL, 8 of them are identified. They're non-negotiable. You must do those 8. Then 8 from 21 leaves what? I can't even think. 13. That's 13. There's 13 left. Out of those 13, you get to pick 4 more, or you have to pick 4 more. They can be any of those 13 that's left. 4 of those 13 at this point for task 5 of the AAPSL. That leaves 9 of the 21. Guess what? When you do the AAPTEL, beginning about week 9, at the end of the AAPTEL, it will be task 4 of the AAPTEL. You will do the other 9 competencies that are left. That will be your 21 competencies that you will have done a personal self-reflection on this semester. Now, one of the 8 required is conflict management. I want you to look, first of all, make sure that you look at how the titles are written. You're going to do it just like you see here. Conflict management. Notice conflict, the C in conflict is capitalized. The management, the M is lowercase. That is according to APA 7th edition. All of these are correctly done. So use these as your model. Now, this is just an example of what conflict management could look like in your narrative work. And it's personal, you. I assisted the school guidance counselor in a disciplinary incident. I assisted the guidance counselor in providing coverage and support during the disciplinary incident. In the de-escalation process, I remained with staff and the student until the student's guardian arrived. The counselor and I reflected on the incident. I was reminded of the importance of conflict resolution and management. That's, you know, you've covered a lot there, and you have it. You can't name students. Confidentiality must be in there, but you can elaborate more than you want to on that. But this is how you have addressed this competency, conflict management, and how it relates to your work with the AAPSL, in addition to associating it or relating it to your work. This is actually more administratively, leans itself more to administration than it actually does with the work you've done with the AAPSL at this time. But you're going to see where some are heavier in one area and some are going to be heavier in other areas. But as you scroll down, you're going to see that every one of them, and this is in your template. These are just examples of what you can do. But then what I want you to look at is what we have done at the bottom of task 5 in the template. Notice what it says right here. You see all this that's been highlighted in yellow? Now you're going to take all this out whenever you do your final work to submit. This is here for you. These are the 8 required competencies: communication, change management, delegation, dialogue inquiry, judgment, systems thinking, technology, visionary. These are non-negotiable. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the 8 required. And remember, no 2 are going to look alike when they are submitted to Dr. Revis and me, because it's your personal experience. Now, underneath that, we have included all 21 of the competencies. These are all 21 of the competencies. In addition to those 8, whatever is left out of the 13, you will pick 4 of those from this list, and you will reflect on them as well. That's all you have to do for task 5 of the AAPSL. Dr. Revis, you want to say anything while I'm pulling something else up at this point? I want to show
Sure.
that.
So since this is a self-reflection, self-analysis, we do not, excuse me, we're not doing peer reviews on task 5.
Right.
And if you wish, you can turn it in for instructor review and we'll look at it. But, you know, unless there's something glaring, or like I said before, for my class, I look to see that you've got a good blend of reflections from your coursework and your clinical experiences. So unless, you know, something's way off the mark, you know, pretty quickly we tell you to go ahead and post for final evaluation. There's not the peer review process here in this task 5.
But if you decide that you want us to look at it, you put it in the discussion board, just like you did the others for Dr. Revis and me, and we will be able to look at it. But if you feel comfortable about it and you don't need to do that, you can go ahead and submit it to us for final evaluation if you want to. That's left up to you. But this is Meredith's again. I pulled up Meredith's work that we used last week. I want you to look at what Meredith has done for the competency communication. She said, to start a new PLC and have a leadership role, I complete detailed research on what forming a PLC truly entailed. Once I had a thorough understanding of what a PLC was in task 1, the next step was to communicate, there's that word, effectively with my administrator why it was necessary to form a PLC and address our most pressing need at the school. I made sure that in the initial meeting in task 1, where I first broached the subject of forming this PLC, there was clear communication on what the need was at the school, and showed that the collaboration of the team will be focused on student learning as well as results oriented. After the meeting, I made sure to follow up on our discussion through electronic communication. Do you see what Meredith has done? She has consistently, over and over and over again, demonstrated her use of her use of communication and how it has been in her work with the AAPSL, and how it has worked in her leadership role doing her internship in the school and communicating with her administration. To me, this is an excellent example of communication, meeting the competency there. Dr. Revis, any comments on that?
Now we're not expecting a dissertation at all, but I would expect a well-developed focus paragraph for each of these competencies.
And just remember, for the competencies, you're only doing narrative work. There are no artifacts to be submitted with task 5. We only want narrative work. That's all we want at this point. Now, Dr. Revis, are there any questions at this point about what you've got to do with task 5? Any questions from anybody?
I've been checking our chat box and I don't see anything there. So guys,
Okay.
just, if you've got a
And
question,
again,
just go ahead.
this is going to be the easiest one that you do. It really is. Just don't rush through it. Take your time, because this is a reflection of you. And I promise you, this is something that if I was, if this, when this work goes into task stream, and if I was looking at you as a potential candidate for an administrative job, I would focus heavily on what you had to say in these areas, because you're telling me about you. You're telling your story here, your story with each of these competencies. Dr. Rivers, would you like to go ahead and just relate this to what they've got to do with their competency, these 12, their competency folio, and we're going to bring this, I mean, we're going to elaborate more later on, but this is a good start.
Well, I think the biggest difference in what you're doing here is you're doing a reflection here with no artifacts. When you get your competency folio, and we're going to talk about that in week, I believe, week 7, we'll talk about that. I guess that's next week, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Done this, and we'll talk about how you kind of translate some of this information over to your competency folio. And there's where you would attach an artifact. So as you're going through and writing your reflections, you could be thinking about, what kind of artifact do I have for this? And if you don't have an artifact, don't create, I mean, and you can't create one, don't make it up. Don't make fictional artifacts, but you know, you some of this work you're going to be able to transfer directly into your competency folio with an artifact. Some you may not be able to, but we will talk about that more in depth next week.
And this is an opportunity, like Dr. Rivers said, we'll talk about, it's an opportunity to go ahead and you're working smarter and not harder is what you're doing. Like she said, with communication, we know that you've already got artifacts for communication. We know that. We know that when you communicated with your administrator to be able to conduct the PLC and to form, when you had to communicate with them about the most pressing need, you've got several artifacts already that you could produce for this. I would have me taking notes on the side, and I would say communication while I'm doing it. I know I've got this, so that when that time comes, you can go ahead back and you can pull it easily and know where they are, or begin, make you a file labeled communication, a file labeled change management. Anyway, we'll talk about this in more detail next week. The next thing we want to talk about is, let me pull this up, okay.
While you're pulling that up, Dr. Stedman, may I go ahead and address the question in the chat box?
Sure, yes.
The question is, so the final and compiled AAPSL comes after this is submitted. Yes, guys, we will tell you exactly step by step what to do to put all these tasks together. Don't worry about that right now.
Right. That's
We
going to
do
come
that.
next week. Yeah.
We'll do that very methodically. There's a process that we want you to follow, and to make sure everything's the way it needs to be before it goes into submission to task stream. So just hold on that. Worry about task 5 this week.
And we will tell you, Dr. Revis Dr. Revis is going to take the lead on the competencies for your competency folio, and I will assist her. And then I'm going to take the lead next week on telling you how to put this all together as a final document before it goes to turn it in the task group. We'll talk about the turn it in process. We'll talk about, what you do next week. That is what our class next week's going to be. Okay. But before then, you've got another big responsibility coming up, and that is your case study. Oh, in Blackboard, you have a whole section on case study materials. So I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to take you step by step through what your case studies are going to look like. Your case study is actually due must be dropped by week 8, March 7th. However, it's not something that you need to wait until the last minute to begin planning to do. And you don't have to, once your team gets together and once you have done all this, then you don't have to wait until week 8 to even submit it to Dr. Revis and me. If you get it done ahead of time, then, kudos to you as a team. But this is where you're going to find everything that you need to be able to do your case studies. I'm going to click on case study directions at this point. You have access to this in your Blackboard. Okay. Okay. The case study directions. This is what you're going to do. First of all, individually, independently, you're going to read the case study and you're going to write a 1-paragraph response for each of the questions. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. The case study's here and the questions are there. You're individually, ahead of a Zoom meeting, you're going to read the case study and you're going to write a response to each of the questions after you have read your case study. Whoever the Zoom master is, and you as a team will decide who that is, the Zoom master schedules, sends out the link, and records the case study session that you will have as a team after you have read and you have done, responded to the questions on the case study. During the case study Zoom session, each team member shares their written responses and the group then engages in a scholarly discussion of the responses led by the Zoom master. Group consensus is desirable, but not required of the scholarly discussion. Now, I will tell you, the case study that you're going to read is related to the work that you have done with the AAPSL. Okay? So you're to think AAPSL, you're to think of everything that you've learned, in the development of the AAPSL. However, your administrative experiences that you're doing with can also filter into some of the conversation that you've had. The one thing that we don't want is we don't want just a bunch of random opinions. If you have an opinion about something, then at this point, it needs to be validated and supported with what the research says or what you have read in the readings that you've done. The last thing, each candidate, after all of this has happened, each of you are going to write a minimum of 1 page, which is 2 parts, a 1-page, 2-part, first part reflective summary of both the case study and the case study Zoom session. What does that mean? Okay, now the case study itself, you're going to do a reflection. And we don't want you to just go back and regurgitate exactly what, we can read that, but we want in your own words for you to do a reflective summary on what this case study was about to you. Actually what was it talking about? What was the meat of it? So a good summary of it. And then the case study Zoom session. After you as a team have come together and you've had your scholarly discussion, what did that experience mean to you as it related to the case study? What, you talk about that experience. Now we say a 1 page. If it takes more than that, some people can say everything they want to say in just a little bit. Some people it takes more. That's going to be left up to you. The case study Zoom session part of the reflective summary will include the takeaways from the scholarly discussion. Dr. Revis, while I am coming out of this, would you like to say anything else?
Sure. I want to just put an emphasis on the terminology scholarly discussion. That's where we expect for you to pull up some of the research that you may have used in um, conducting your PLC work and your action plan and improvement process out of the AAPSL. We want to hear the terminology that you used in the AAPSL. This case study is about a new principal being assigned to a struggling school. So think about, okay, what have I done in the AAPSL that could relate here to what he's facing as a new principal? And I'm not going to go any further than that because I don't want to give anything away, but we want to hear you say things instead of saying, well, I think you should do that. Here's what I want to hear. Well, according to Ubben, this is what the new principal should first and foremost start looking at when he is arriving on the scene. Or according to some of the PLC research, he needs to do da 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 da. I want to hear that scholarly discussion. It's not what you think, it's what does the research say you should be doing when you walk into a new school that is struggling academically with student learning.
And this is the case study.
Absolutely.
This is the case study. You see the title, The Principal as the Instructional Leader, as Dr. Revis said. Now you read it, and then at the end, these are the questions that you are to respond to prior to your Zoom meeting. What do you think of the way James handled his particular situation, considering his limited background? What more could be done to help the reading scores in this school? And again, this is not opinion. Your opinion must be backed by valid research, what the research says. What additional resources could James utilize to help the school improve? Did you not do a whole task on looking for resources to help with your identified problem? I mean, you've got the background already to talk about that. What could he be sacrificing, if anything, by placing an extraordinary emphasis only on the reading program? These are very thought-provoking, very thought-provoking. So those are the 4 questions that you will be addressing prior to coming together with your team. And then after you get through with it, remember, the person who is the Zoom master is responsible for recording the video and is responsible for uploading it into, or recording this, uploading it into a video and sending each of you the link, just like you did with task 1 and task 2 of the AAPSL. This is where you will submit your work for a grade to Dr. Revis and me. Case study scenario 1, written reflection and Zoom link. It all goes here. And I think you understand what you need to do from that point on. Everything will go in there and will be submitted to us for a grade. Everything you need is right there. Are there any questions of Dr. Revis and me at this time about what you need to do for case study number 1? Okay, I'm going to stop my share. Okay, the rest of the time is for us to just simply talk. We're going to or listen. Anybody have any questions of Dr. Revis and me at this time about where you are? You really, really are coming. I mean, the light bulb has come on. I can see the great potential, as you're moving forward in this journey. But this is a good time to ask questions now, or comments.
I have a question.
Okay.
So as I was reviewing all of my tasks and just kind of going through and making sure I had corrected everything and everything was there, I haven't been putting my PLC agendas in my appendixes or like some of them I've got pictures from when I was doing PLCs, and they're not in those AAPSL tasks now. Can I still go in and add that?
You don't
Okay.
have to go back and add them to that. You can put them when you do your final at the end,
Okay.
put it all together. That's Tasha, that's when you can add things to your appendices then that you would like to add.
Okay.
That
Because
was
I
a
was
good
looking on my
question.
computer today and I was like, oh, I didn't put this in there.
No,
Oh, I didn't
you
put that
can
in there.
always, you know, nothing's final until we submit it to task stream for a final evaluation. Nothing is
Okay.
final at this point. So yeah, good question.
Tasha, I think I was just so blown away by your narratives that I guess I overlooked some of those artifacts.
Tasha, and I'm sorry I called you Tasha. Tasha, I'm sorry.
It's
Um,
Tasha, but I answered all
Tasha,
three.
Tasha, okay. Okay, that's good. Um, and again, many of you just really did some, your reviews were excellent, but and I'm probably going to embarrass her, but Lisa, I just want to tell you, I was blown away by, that is just truly a gift. It's a gift, and I told Lisa that that is going to take her far in administration. It's just a knack, and you know what she says to people and how she says it is just going, people are going to, the teachers are going to eat out of your hands when you become an administrator. And you know, there were others, but I just wanted to really point that out. Some of the best I've ever read. But excellent job. And that's
Thank you,
not, she's
Dr.
not the
Tippin.
only one, but I just really wanted to point that out because it was over and beyond. And those of you that got feedback from Lisa, you know, I would want feedback from Lisa.
So, you know, feedback doesn't come naturally. I mean, you
No.
work at giving good feedback. And, you know, I don't think you want to overwhelm people. And in the work setting, when you go in and observe a teacher, if you know, folks, sometimes you'll walk into a classroom and you'll see so many things that are wrong. You have to be very strategic in what you focus on first with them. But you know, in this task you're doing with giving peer review, you know, we're okay. We can do several things, but it's not something that comes naturally to most people. So kudos, Lisa. And I've had some real good specific feedback. I like to see the specific feedback because, guys, our students learn better when we give them specific feedback. Our teachers will improve also if you can give them very specific, timely, formative feedback. But
And I
again,
want to say this too, you know, this whole process has your character, your personality, everything is really put on trial, you know, when you are having to satisfy so many people, including Dr. Revis and me. But you know, and Jenna, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I guess I am. But Jenna is in a very unique situation, and she has had to change her focus 3 times, 3 times at administration's request, which was a little bit overwhelming. But I'm going to tell you, I am proud of Jenna. She took it in stride. She kept a smile on her face. She communicated with me. And I will tell you, as of today, with everything that she had to deal with and what she had to do, Jenna is up to date with everything today. And you know, that is a part of uh, this process. I'm going to tell you, when you become an administrator, you know, life, if the superintendent asks you for something, you can't put it on hold. If they ask for it, there's a reason for it. And you know, Dr. Revis and I can say, okay, well, we understand life happens, and we're going to give you a day or two, you know, to come back. Sometimes, as an administrator, you don't have that opportunity. You don't. Sometimes, as an administrator, you might have a plan to you might have a plan that you're going to do this. You might even say, well, I'm going to take Friday off and I'm going to go off. And guess what? I've had to change my plans before because my superintendent said, I need this. And so I had to tell my wife and my family, you know, we can't do it right now. So, you know, those kinds of things happen. And I think you're learning the word, again, I saw perseverance. You have to learn perseverance. And, you know, you've had to had to have a lot of it, you know, in light of COVID and everything else that you've had to deal with. But just know that Dr. Revis and I, we've been around a while and we understand and we see these things. So I can go back to week 1 and week 2 and look from where you were that first couple of weeks and to see where you are now. And, you know, I say this is like boot camp in the Army. You're going to make good soldiers. I can it's happening. The discipline is starting to happen. It's coming, it is folding out. Now, I will say that if you feel like, you know, I don't know if I can do this for the rest of my life. I don't know if I can handle. You need to make some decisions. Don't invest your time into something that you don't feel like that you're going to enjoy, or that you can't do. You need to think about that because it doesn't end, does it, Dr. Revis?
No, and I will say this, that many of you commented in your Zoom team meetings about how much you've had to organize and manage your time. And when you're an administrator, it's all about good time management and organizational skills. Like Dr. Stedman said, you may have a well laid out plan for the week, but when your immediate supervisor, be it your principal or superintendent, tells you to do something, that gets put up at the top of the list immediately. And I'm kind of old school, guys. My supervisor tells me to do something from, even now. Dr. Lamb tells me to do something. I break my neck to get it done and get it done well. That's just what it is. And if you want to go anywhere in education, you've got to make sure that you are doing what you're asked to do. There'll be plenty of times when you can strike out on your own on some things. But when your supervisor tells you to do something and get it in or whatever, you got to pop that to the top of your list. That's just the way it is. The other thing that I would say, guys, I would hate to see any of you think right now, oh, this is not my cup of tea.
Right.
Especially where you are right now in the AAPSL, and I'm just blown away by how many of your administrators have been engaged with your PLCs, have been right there supporting you. Now, Jenna, bless your heart, you've had a tough road to hoe when you have an administrator who keeps switching gears on you, and I tell you, that's been tough. But kudos to you.
Her administrator has been very supportive. It's just a unique situation, and they tried to find their place. The administrator has been very supportive, but they wanted to do what was going to be best for the school and for the students. So. Right.
So to see the impact that you can possibly have on student learning right now when you develop that action plan, and you did that in 5 weeks, 4 weeks. Now, as I said the other night when we were talking, now the work ends, and that's when you start implementing that plan. And a lot of that's not going to fall on you. A lot of that's going to have to fall on the shoulders of your administrators. And I know you know that, even though you're taking a big step and contributing a lot with monitoring the action plan. But if you don't get some kind of inner joy out of what you've done already on the AAPSL, then you probably are in the wrong business, because it's lonely at the top, and it's a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Revis, before we close out tonight, I want to give is there a student that would like to just unmute yourself and just talk about how you feel at this point. You know, we want to give you opportunities to say some things too. You know, just openly reflecting over the last few weeks where you are right now. Anybody? Don't be afraid. Okay.
I'm a drama teacher. I talk to everybody, so I'll jump in. Um, when I did my presentation with my principal for the action plan and everything, she sat down and she said, okay, so when are we going to do this? Are we starting now? When are you going to train people? Everything that I've got in my action plan is starting at my school this week.
Great.
And
Yay!
it's crazy.
Tasha,
One
that's
of the
great.
things that I researched, I've done PLCs and I've done action plans. And since I'm the drama teacher and got thrown in with math, I don't teach math. So I would just kind of, okay, I'll go along with it. I'll help you write it, whatever. Sitting down and doing this and having to look at the numbers has really opened my eyes to a lot of the things that we should have been doing all along, but we've never taken it seriously. So I have learned a ton. And in turn, with me learning, my AP is in grad school doing his doctorate at Gardner-Webb. So I've been going to him and talking to him about it. And then the two of us are going to the principal and talking to her about it. And it's been amazing. Okay. But when I first started this, I thought, good gracious, what have I gotten myself into? This is a lot, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Right. Thank you for that. Thank you.
One more. And Tasha, I remember you saying at some juncture that I'm a drama teacher. What do I know about data? But, you know, guys, you got to get into that data world right now, regardless of what you've been teaching or what you've been working or what you've been doing. You've got to get comfortable with that student learning data.
Well, and the example, Dr. Revis, that we've been using is Meredith Eiler, who is a physical education teacher. So that goes right along with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there one more person that would like to say something before we close?
Can I do a shout out to my group?
Sure.
The two peer reviews that I did, I had to hunt for stuff. And it's I'm back to the same two people that I was reviewing the first week. And I was like, kudos, this is great. You don't even have this time. Hey, this is great. The only thing I would change is this. It was so wonderful to see the progress that other people are doing. So I'm hoping that they're seeing the same thing with me. But
great.
Hi, Zoom group.
Great comment, Tasha.
And we're seeing that as well in your papers. We're seeing that.
Okay. I don't want to leave anybody out now. Anybody else? Last time. Last call. Okay. Dr. Revis, if you give the benediction then.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Tasha, for feeling comfortable in sharing with us your reflection. And that's what we want to hear. And that's what is our reward when we see you guys growing professionally and moving into that leadership role. I remember the first night of class. You guys remember when Dr. Stedman said, I'm going to take off your teacher hat and put on your principal hat? I think you're there. I think you guys have been wearing that and wearing it very well the last 3 weeks. So I'm excited to see where you end up at the end of the semester, but I can't be more pleased with the progress you've made. And take some time this week as you're doing your reflections to really think back about how much you've grown personally and professionally through this process.
And Stephanie said she can't unmute herself, but she said, I also learned a lot about math doing this. I had no background as a school counselor, but I definitely feel like I've grown doing this work. And I think most of you or all of you would say the same thing. Well, good night. Stay safe. It looks like we're in for some more bad weather before the week's over with, but be safe wherever you are, and we will see you again on next Tuesday.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.